My name is Jason J. Rock Houston, and this is Theatricality Magazine. You guys are listening to Destroyer 40. We're speaking with pretty boy Floyd guitar player Kristy Majors. How you doing tonight, Kristy?
I'm doing great, thanks, man.
And of course, this is for our special Destroyer 40, which is celebrating the 40th anniversary of Kiss's classic 1976 album Destroyer. Now, you and your band are obviously major Kiss fans there, Kristy, for the fact that you guys recently put out this great Kiss tribute CD called A Kiss of Death. I was wondering, so if you could start this off sharing with us, how did you first get into the music of Kiss and become a fan yourself?
Well, God, I was really young. Obviously I was just, flipping through magazines and album covers and stores and stuff like that, and just got intrigued immediately by the look of Kiss, with the makeup. Obviously, there was nobody else out there like that,
Yeah.
And I think, God, I don't know which record I bought first. I think it was Kiss Alive.
Wow. And people forget, back in the day, like you're saying, nobody knew what any of the guys looked like. And I mean, it's kind of interesting. Kiss Alive is an album where things really started to take off for the band, and I mean, before that, those first three Kiss albums didn't really sell that well, but Alive, I mean, if you remember the first time seeing that, especially the vinyl, a double gatefold, I mean, there was nothing like that at the time.
Exactly, yeah, the double, I think it was a double album with a double opening. Yeah, no, it was marketed incredibly well because, I think that's supposed to be at Madison Square Garden, but I don't think Kiss at that time ever even played Madison Square Garden. So I think that it was, if I'm not mistaken, I think that whole record was just a complete, fake record.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, I'm not positive,
Yeah.
but, like you said, at that time, I don't think Kiss, obviously they were a club band up until that point,
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because the actual album itself was recorded in Detroit's legendary Cobo Hall, which has since been torn down. But from what I understand, for years, I mean, because it sounds like just such a great in-your-face, in-concert album. But I guess actually what you're talking a little bit about is there's been somewhat controversy in recent years, the fact that they went back and they've admitted to tweaking some of the stuff. But I guess that's done on a lot of the live albums now. With that being the case and being the musician you are, Kristy, how surprised were you to hear the fact that the guys went back to the studio and kind of touched up stuff?
I mean, come on, man. I mean, everything, like you said, everybody does it. I mean, hell, we even did it. It's you want to give the fans, the best product that you could possibly give them, and I mean, you don't want something out there forever if you fuck something. Can I say fuck? I don't even.
No, that's good. We're good here.
Okay, yeah. If you mess something up, a guitar solo, lyric, or you're out of key a little bit, or something like that. I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, to me, my way of looking at it, for years that was like the album Kiss fans would hold up like Kiss Alive. That's where a lot of them got their first taste of Kiss. And to me, I mean, it's one of people's all-time favorite live albums of all time. And even though we know that they went back and tweaked stuff, to me, the album sounds just as great as it ever did. Even if I had never known that, I mean, you got to be honest. I mean, if you listen to it with your ears, it sounds like the same album. You can't really say that you can really tell the difference.
Right. They were a great live. They were a great live band. I mean, there was just no doubt about it. In their heyday, up for 30 years of Kiss. I mean, they were just a spectacularly great live band. Not only theatrically, but musically as well. So there's no denying that. And
now let me ask you, Kristy, because I've always thought of Pretty Boy Floyd as, to me, you guys always came across as like a cross between like Kiss and Motley Crue, which people can obviously see those influences in what you guys do. But I was curious because you guys were really one of those bands, a lot like Poison, that were very proud to be, have a real glammy look back in the day. When you guys first got together, I mean, whose decision was it to kind of have like, go the glam look? I mean, that was big at the day, but I mean, you could have also been like Kiss and kind of like created like makeup, but you guys went the opposite direction, went for obviously more of a glammy look.
I mean, that's what I was inspired from growing up, from New York Dolls to Alice Cooper to Kiss to, T-Rex, to, all David Bowie, all that glam stuff that was out there when I was younger, and especially growing up in New York City. It was just like that, Hanoi Rocks. It was, it was very influenced by all that in the New York City small little underground scene. You had like two scenes. You had like that kind of scene going on, and then you had the hardcore Combat Records, Megaforce kind of scene going on with the Anthraxes and the Overkills and the SODs and all that kind of stuff. So there was just influence from all of that, I think. And when I came out here, and we hooked up with the guys, we all found that was a mutual influence that we all kind of had.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because people fail to realize. I mean, even like a band like Pantera, they had a real glam look, back in the day when they were just getting started.
Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Yeah.
But I mean, a lot of bands went that way. Guns N' Roses. I mean, come on. A lot of bands went that way, and then they decided that they wanted to take it off and let the music be more significant in their careers than not only the look, as well as the music. I don't know. To me, I always enjoyed. When I go see a show, I want to see a show, I just don't want to see four guys up on stage, playing their instruments really great, unless it was like Metallica back in 19, on the Kill 'Em All tour or something.
Yeah, I mean, that's to me what makes a band like Pretty Boy Floyd stand out. I mean, the fact that you and Steve Majors are the two major guys in the band all these years, but I mean, much like Kiss, one thing that always impressed me about Kiss was. You had a band, for example, where not just one guy sang, but you had a band where all four guys could sing, and like each person has their favorite Kiss member, So on that note, I got to ask, as far as Kiss, was there a particular member that you gravitated more towards?
Oh, well, since I play guitar, obviously it's Frehley, I mean, I love these sloppy guitar playing, but just tasteful. I can't. I don't know if anybody else out there who really kind of sounded like Ace.
Well, that makes sense.
He had a very unique sound.
Yeah, let me ask you on that note, have you had a chance to hear Ace's new cover CD?
I have not heard the cover CD. I had the last one. I don't know if it was the last one, but it was the one where it has like the crazy fold out.
Yeah. Space Invader. But let me tell you, if you get a chance to check out the cover CD, it's worth it for no other reason than like you're saying, Ace he's got his own style. But what I love is like back in the day, like he was writing these songs that you would not think were Ace Frehley songs, like Parasite, Strange Ways, and if you get his new cover CD. He's done a new version of Parasite with John 5. He re-recorded Cold Gin, and these are tracks that he originally wrote. So we finally got original studio versions of these tracks, and they are killer. I mean, you got to hear Ace's lead vocal on Parasite and Cold Gin. It's finally out there.
I would love to. I knew Ace wrote those songs that he wasn't comfortable singing them. He wasn't comfortable singing at that time.
Yeah.
So he had the other guys sing them, but those were great songs.
Yeah. And now talk a little bit about so you became a Kiss fan through Kiss Alive 1, obviously, but once you
Kiss Alive, and then I lived in New York City, and I think it was finally I convinced my dad to take me to Madison Square Garden to see the Love Gun tour.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah. And I was very, very young. I can't remember how young I was. But it was incredible because everybody was wearing, their favorite makeup from the different members, dressed up like that. And my dad was kind of freaked out by the whole thing because as soon as we got in our seats, like somebody in front of us was like holding a towel, sniffing glue. Everybody pot.
Wow, wow.
And was trying to cover my eyes and cover my mouth and my nose and everything. And then, finally, I think it came to the part where Gene was doing his blood thing, and he's spitting blood, and obviously he had the screen and everything. My dad's just looking at me, he's like, "You like this?" And I'm like, "This is great."
Yeah. Are you kidding me? I mean, I never forgot the first time I seen that. I mean, it's the circus come to town. It's more than just a rock band. I mean, it's almost a religion. I mean, and especially for a kid that age, seeing a show like that for the very first time, you're like, wow, I can't believe this guy just breathed fire. I can't believe this guy just spit blood. It's like nothing you'd ever seen before.
It was great. It was like watching a theatrical movie, and I think that's what that's what was so great about it. I mean, like Alice Cooper and Kiss and everything. I mean, it was like a theatrical play on stage. And growing up in New York City, also my parents took me to many Broadway plays.
Wow.
So I just grew up with that whole scene, and I related to the music and the theatrics of it, and it was just incredible.
And I got to ask you, when you went to see that Love Gun show, did you go to the show dressed up as Ace?
No, I did not.
And I got to ask you, Kristy, because since I talked to you last, in fact, just just the other night, I was supposed to interview you, and we had to reschedule for tonight. But I'm glad that happened, because since then somebody posted this. Speaking of your parents, you must have had cool parents, and I say that because I seen this thing somebody posted from like 1987 when you were very young. It was Geraldo Rivera. They called it Heavy Metal Moms. You were on there with your mom, and your mom just seemed like the coolest thing.
That was like, I think that was like 1990, actually. I think that came out.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it was like, because it was right after our record came out, which came out in like 89, like in winter. And, well, you know what? My mom was like super cool, but my dad was the one who was like the true supporter of me,
Oh, wow. But I just thought that was kind of cool to be back. Was that the first time you'd done any type of television like that?
Yeah, it was really strange, because when they were going to commercial breaks, I remember everybody was so supportive of their kids, especially Joey Ramone's mom and Joe Spade's mom and Steve West's mom, and so everybody was so supportive of of their kids. I think my mom was the only one who was like, I just thought, I don't get it, I don't understand what he's doing, would say, well, why he dyed his hair, why, getting tattoos, why he's playing this music, and when we kept on going to commercial breaks, I think it was not too long ago, it was only a few months before that, when Geraldo had an episode where somebody was like throwing chairs and stuff.
Yeah. And he broke his nose or something.
And he got hit and stuff and everything, and so, when we kept on going to commercial breaks, Geraldo kept on saying, like, come on now, we really need some, we need some dirt, we need some, we need, real stories, we need something controversial here, because everybody just kept on being so supportive. So these commercial breaks, I was just like, it was so funny. He was just trying to egg everybody on to, dish out some dirt,
Yeah.
It was an interesting
experience, to say the least. And then, of course, I got to ask you. So in between that time, of course, the album Destroyer came out back in 1976. What did you think of Destroyer as a whole when you heard the album for the very first time?
It's kind of funny. I mean, at first I was not a fan of Destroyer. I mean, obviously there were some songs on there that were just incredible. Obviously, like Detroit Rock City and God of Thunder and King of the Nighttime World and some of those other ones. But there was also some really departures from Kiss. Like Great Expectations.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, at that time, I was so young, and I didn't think about it, but obviously, I think Bob Ezrin, came in there and did a whole different side to, kept some rockers, obviously, that that they wanted on there, but also took Kiss into a different spectrum.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of interesting you bring that up, because in doing research on this, back in 1976, that was a lot of the Kiss fans' immediate reaction was kind of like, man, this is so different than what they've done before. It's almost too commercial, too polished. and then kind of as time went on, kind of just took off. But like initially, Detroit Rock City, for example, outside of Detroit, for obvious reasons, it didn't really do anything. And I guess initially, a DJ somewhere flipped the song over, and the flip side was Beth, and then they re-released that with Beth as the single. So that's kind of interesting. And then I got to ask you, being a Kiss fan, when you hear the song Beth, which is a band's it's a great song, lasted 40 years, and it's in movies and TV commercials 40 years later, but at the time that was very different type of song for Kiss. What did you think of it when you heard it?
Obviously when I first heard it, I didn't like it. I couldn't relate to it. I was so young, I liked obviously the more aggressive rock stuff, that I was used to hearing from them, like that, Sweet Pain,
yeah,
Great, all that stuff. And it wasn't until actually I started playing in a band that I could start relating to the Beth song,
Yeah.
And I actually ended up really enjoying it. And when I started actually, trying to write songs and everything, is when I really came to truly appreciate that song.
Because again, that's kind of that's a kind of another time when the Kiss Army spoke up and kind of got what they wanted. Like I said, people, initially they didn't go for Detroit Rock City, but they were real fired up about Beth, and even so much to the point I understand when they went in to record the album, Gene and Paul did not want to record that track. And in fact, when Peter Criss went in there to do his vocal track, they had to lock them out of the studio because they were laughing. They thought, Kiss isn't a ballad band. But it was actually Ezrin and Bill Aucoin that pushed, because I guess they saw the potential for that tune.
Right. And you know what? And they were right, too, because that was like their first hit, So there you go, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting that Bob Ezrin, he was almost like the fifth member of a band on that album. I mean, he's credited as a writer on every single track. It was his idea to bring in an orchestra both on Beth and Great Expectations, and that's why that album sounds so.
Right. And at that time, I don't think there was any other rock band that was doing anything that was remotely like that, like bringing in orchestras and stuff like that. I mean, obviously you had the Beatles, bringing in horn sections and stuff like that, and you had some other bands doing, crazy, like Queen or something like that, doing,
Stone Cold
vocals.
Crazy.
Yeah. You never really had people bringing in an orchestra.
And
there was also strange sounds on there.
Yeah.
Like God of Thunder, there was weird, strange sounds in the background and stuff. And then Detroit Rock City, you had the car crash.
Yeah.
You definitely tell that Bob Ezrin, had a massive influence on that record.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny. Like if you put that album next to Revenge, which is another Bob Ezrin album that came years later, 1992. It's almost like Destroyer Part 2, and you could both albums you could really feel Ezrin's influence.
Right.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. Now, I also love Flaming Youth. That's was always such a great battle call type of song to me, and even
great song.
Even today, it really stands out.
We used to play that actually in Pretty Boy Floyd early. We used to do that in rehearsal. We used to just really rock that version of it.
Yeah.
We never played it live, but we used to play it in rehearsal for fun.
Wow. And now I got to ask you again. I talked to you a little bit before about this great tribute CD you guys put out called Kiss of Death, which is obviously a whole tribute CD dedicated to Kiss. Like obviously, in talking to you, Kristy, you're quite the Kiss fan, so I can understand why you felt the need to put such a CD out. But a lot of bands, they go in and they do like a cover album, different covers by different bands. Why did you guys, which I think again is a cool idea, nothing like this has been done before, where one band such as Pretty Boy Floyd puts out a whole album of Kiss tunes? Pretty cool idea. Who came up with this idea?
Before we get into that really quick, I want to say how much actually the Destroyer record actually influenced me. Influenced Pretty Boy Floyd so much that actually when it came time when we were talking about our album cover, I remember bringing to the artist the Destroyer album cover, and I said, I want this.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, again, it's kind of interesting you say that, because all these years later, I mean, even the artwork, you look at that album artwork, it's so iconic. I mean, it's it almost looks like a beautiful painting. I mean, it's something you could hang up, but it's so iconic, and that's one of the things that really, when you think of Destroyer, just the artwork still stands out so many, 40 years later.
Exactly. I mean, I remember, as a kid, I trying to draw a Destroyer, in school, and then even Rock and Roll Over album cover, which was so crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody used to try and draw that, I mean, it was just, it was great artwork, and they followed it up with Love Gun, too, which was very similar to the Destroyer album cover as well. I don't even know who painted those album covers, but they were great, and then, and that's an attraction, because, I mean, when you were walking through record stores, I mean, I remember the first time I ever discovered Iron Maiden, I never even heard of Iron Maiden, but, I just picked up the Killers album cover, and the artwork was just so, so great, and I just took it home, and I was like, oh my God, this is great, and then listening to it, obviously, I became a fan, so, it's too bad we don't have record stores anymore, but,
I hear you. I mean, I still love to have, something physical to hold in my hand. I mean, it's sad kids today, they don't even know what's a record store, what's a record. I miss going to Tower Records and checking out all the new releases, but that was back in the day. They don't do it like they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I used to love getting lost in a music store, especially on Tower on Sunset. It was so huge and iconic, I used to love just walking through there, and they would have those little listening stations, and you could just really just listen to new music and discover new music that way. And it was great. You could just go in there one night and just get lost in there for like an hour, 2 hours, and walk out with a few records or CDs of new music that you probably would have never heard of unless you had those listening stations.
Yeah, and I got to ask you, Kristy, what do you think about the fact that vinyl seems to be making a comeback? I even seen on the Pretty Boy Floyd website that you guys have been releasing some of the older stuff on vinyl.
I mean, I think vinyl's making a comeback. It's really great. I think, it's become more of a collector's
thing, yeah.
I've had my Pretty Boy Floyd record just because I love the artwork.
Yeah.
In a frame and hung up on my wall for forever now. I think people like it for that. Not only for just like a little collector's item as well, also because it's exclusive. You're not printing that many pieces. Maybe you're doing like 1,000 pieces of vinyl, and that's it. So it's pretty cool, and I don't know how many people are actually listening to it on vinyl, but I hope there are people listening to it on vinyl, because obviously that was a great way to listen to music back in the days. Yeah,
and for anybody listening to this, I was curious, are all the Pretty Boy Floyd releases, or any of them out of print, or can people still get their hands pretty much on everything you guys have put out there?
You can still get your hands on some other Boys Electric Boys CDs, and obviously, we did a limited run of vinyl out there, and then we did a limited run of vinyl on the Kiss of Death record as well, and then, you can pretty much still get almost everything kind of that we just don't sell on the website anymore. I really got to update it, unfortunately, and obviously all the T-shirts, they're all sold out, they're all gone. Most of the CDs are kind of gone too. But I mean, there's Amazon and eBay, so you can find stuff. Steve goes crazy on his Facebook, putting packages together.
Yeah, I seen that. That's pretty cool. So So I imagine you guys still own the rights to the music and all that, or is that the case?
Yes.
Oh, that's great. So, real quick, now I know you guys have you signed to Frontiers Records, and you have a new studio CD coming out soon. Do you have an official release date on that yet?
Don't have an official release date yet, only because we are, we're not completely done with it. All the music, everything is done. There's just some guitar stuff, some background vocals that need to be done and be mixed, but it should be done within at the end of July. And then we're gonna and then we're focusing on doing another iconic kind of album cover as well.
Oh, cool.
Sort of another kind of like painting drawing. So we're getting into starting on doing on that. And obviously we want to release some vinyl on that too, and that takes a while.
Yeah.
From the press, so I'm not sure of the release date yet. Obviously we'll find out when we hand everything over to Frontiers, and obviously they're more of a real record label than what we've been working with in the past. So obviously they do a setup and PR campaign and everything else. So
yeah, that's great. I was curious, as far as the deal with Frontiers, was it a matter? Did you reach out to them, or did they reach out to you guys? The reason I ask is, for a number of years, Pretty Boy Floyd was one of those bands that a lot of people heard the name, but you guys didn't get a lot of respect from industry, so to speak. But I think it's great to finally be on a label like that, where the band's going to maybe hopefully get a little more of a push.
Yeah, that's why we went with them, and we did actually reach out to them because we heard through the grapevine they were signing some more artists. I think they were working out a deal with Stephen Piercy and Boy Floyd and a few others. And obviously, they have a history with this type of music with Whitesnake, Sebastian Bach, and Big Night Ranger, and a few others and stuff. So obviously they have a history to this music, and so yeah, we're glad to put out a new record and actually have it being pushed. And obviously, since they're located in Italy, which is great because we always had a great fan base overseas, probably a lot bigger than we did in the United States. So.
And it seems like there's a little more love these days for Pretty Boy Floyd. I mean, so much to the fact that I know you guys recently had an appearance at the Vegas Rock Awards. What was that like?
Yeah, that was okay. It was pretty fun actually. All those people, gathered in one place, and yeah, I mean, we opened up the show, and we played Leather Boys, Butcher Toys, and Set Mine on Fire, and won a little award, and yeah, it was a good time,
And did you get a chance to see Angel or Twisted Sister perform?
Angel did not perform. They just accepted an award.
Okay.
And Eddie Trunk introduced them. I was never really
a huge fan.
A big Angel fan. I just, obviously there were a lot of people that were, but for some reason, I don't know, it just didn't resonate on the East Coast Angel.
I hear you. Wow.
But it was great seeing Dee Snider. Does the guy age? I don't know. Maybe he doesn't age, but he's in great shape. His voice sounds fucking amazing.
Yeah.
And they played 2 songs. Obviously, I Want to Rock and We're Not Gonna Take It, and they sounded great.
I love the fact that this kind of music is finally somebody showing some love for it. It's really a great thing. And talk a little bit about this Kiss of Death CD. I get because we're talking about Destroyer, so I got to ask. There are obviously some songs from Destroyer that you guys cover. King of a Nighttime World, Detroit Rock City, Shout It Out Loud.
Yeah, obviously, basically, in my Pro Tools studio, my little studio, I have a studio called Highway to Hell Studios.
Wow.
And it's a cool little hole in the wall, but it's pretty badass. But I've had Pro Tools for a long time now, and I didn't know how to use it. Basically, I was learning how to use it from YouTube and trial and error and everything. And then I had just updated it to a new program, and it had this drum program.
Wow.
And it had all these other things in there, and I didn't know how to use them, so I just started programming some stuff. And what did I know off the top of my head? And I knew Kiss songs off the top of my head without even having to think back. It's like I knew drum patterns, I knew the guitars and the basses, and so I started just recording some stuff just to see what it would sound like. And at that time, we've been working on this Pretty Boy Floyd CD, just as long, so
Yeah.
this Kiss of Death CD actually we finished
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, we've been working on this Pretty Boy Floyd record before me and Steve had a massive fight, at the same time, for like 5 years, 6 years. And so Steve came into the studio when he was he's like, well, what's that you're working on? I said, I'm just messing around with, some, new gear that I got and everything, some new preamps and compressors and, these new plugins and stuff like that. He's like, oh, that's pretty cool. He's like, we should sing on one of those. And I think one of the first ones that we sang on was like Room Service.
Yeah, that's the other thing I love about this CD is the fact that it's such a great cross section of Kiss tunes. I mean, going back all the way to the first album was Dues, right up to Creatures of the Night, and I Love It Loud. We get Room Service, I Stole Your Love, Going Blind. You get everything here.
Yeah, I pretty much picked out like most of my favorite songs that I liked, and the ones that I like knew off the top of my head. Like I said, like I didn't even have to go back and like pretty much listen to like what was going on. It's like I remember sitting in my room as a kid, just playing these songs over and over and over again. So I knew these by the back. I knew these, like the back of my hand. So I just started programming them, and then Steve started singing on some of them, and we were singing on more of them, and doing more of them, and then they were just starting to come out cool. I'm like, hey, you know what? Why don't we just put this out?
Yeah, and we don't have to get into details, Kristy, because I think ultimately it's just a great thing to have Pretty Boy Floyd back together, especially you and Steve. After you guys kind of had a falling out, for a number of years, how great does it feel to be back together?
We're back together in a small capacity. I really want to get this new CD out only because I've been,
working on it.
I slaved away at it, for a good year. Recording the drums and bass and guitars and everything, and then but I'm glad that actually we waited to finish it now, because me and Steve are getting along a lot better than we did back then. So much time has passed. We're older now. We've learned, from our stupid mistakes. So we realized that we both kind of need each other in order to kind of really do pretty well.
Yeah, because that's the point I was getting ready to make. Is I think at the end of the day, it's great. That you guys are able to kind of get back together, even just to do this, because I really think at the end of the day, when people think of Pretty Boy Floyd, just like when they think of Kiss, most people think of Paul Stanley, Gene Simmons. In your case, Kristy Majors, Kristy Majors, and Steve, and I think if you were to try to get another singer, it just wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, no, obviously I never did a show as Pretty Boy Floyd with another singer because it wasn't out of lack of trying.
Yeah.
It just when I sat down and thought about it, I'm like, that's not gonna be right. Even though Steve has gone out there and done Pretty Boy Floyd without me.
Yeah.
Most of that time was with my blessing. I was just kind of like
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I was just like, man, I can't say I want to be with you anymore, man. I just can't do it, man. I'm sorry. So my heart was not into it. So Steve went out there and put together his little projects and did what he had to do. And obviously, that was with my blessing. I didn't have, I wasn't pissed off about that.
Well, that's good. It's all come full circle. And
now it's come full circle. Steve's married. Steve's older. I'm older now, and we just sat down and we just said, hey, you know what? Let's do this right. Let's put out this record. We're working on another record. Obviously, all the years went by, and I've been writing other songs. So we already started on the next record as well.
That's great to hear. Now,
so we want to get this out. We're going to play less shows, instead of going out there. And that was the downfall, I think, of always of Pretty Boy Floyd. It's like when we spent too much time together, trapped in, a shitty traveling situation and traveling across the world, and you're playing a Tuesday night in, Idaho, and there's 20 people there, and you just start, getting on each other's nerves, and basically, you you're not taking showers
There you go.
every day. You're trapped in a bus where air conditioning is not working, or it keeps on breaking down, or something. And and you just start fighting with each other. So we sat down. We said, okay, let's play less shows, and let's focus on putting out the record, and let's play more quality shows.
And so, like, as far as when you guys do a show, like you say, with the label being based, in Europe, you might do some of the bigger European festivals, maybe, or like if you're going to do a show, it'll make.
Yeah, actually, yeah. Next year we're already booked for the Frontiers Fest in Milan,
Wow.
in Italy. I think I forget who else is on there. I think LA Guns. I think Night Ranger. Us. I think I confirmed for that. I'm not sure, but I think that's what it is. Yeah. So hopefully we'll be hitting some more of those bigger festivals, and obviously we're playing, the Hair Nation Festival in Anaheim, which is, it's not the Cat House, it's called the Hair Nation.
Yeah. Wow.
We're doing that. So we're gonna focus in on playing less shows and just make it more. More festivals, or bigger shows, or whatever we possibly can do. Then instead of just getting in a bus and driving across the country for 30 days and end up beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah, and as far as the live show, have you guys given any thought to when you do perform out there live, how much of a classic material you're going to play versus a new material?
Well, obviously we've been dying to play new material, but nobody wants
that.
Nobody wants to play. You don't want to play new material that nobody knows of,
Yeah.
Because then everybody just sits there twiddling so like, what the hell's going on here? But yeah, we want to play some new songs, but we know what the fans want, so we're gonna give them what they want. They want the classic Leather Boys, the That's Your Toy songs, So obviously we're gonna give them that, and then we're gonna be shooting two music videos for the new record.
Cool.
So hopefully people will latch onto those songs, and we'll definitely be throwing those into the set as well.
And as far as these Kiss tunes on Kiss of Death, have you had a chance to perform any of those songs live?
We have not, actually, but you know what? We're going to start throwing, I think, Love Gun actually into the set.
Oh, that'd be cool. And wow.
Yeah, I think we're actually doing it. The first time we're going to actually play one of these songs is in Colorado. I think in July we have a show at I think it's the Golden Rose.
Okay, and so you're not exactly sure when the album's coming out, but I guess fans can expect it sometime by the end of the year.
I'm hoping that it comes out at the beginning of the year.
Oh, that's great.
I'm either the beginning of the year or before
summer.
Late, October, November. I'm hoping that's enough setup time. I obviously need to discuss this with Frontiers, but obviously, well, we still have some music videos to shoot and some photo shoots, and like I said, just wrapping up a little bit of the music and the mixing, and then the album cover, and then we're ready to go.
And the very last thing I wanted to touch base with you on, Kristy, because I was always a fan of your, just as much a fan of your solo music as Pretty Boy Floyd. And last time I talked to you, you told me, in addition to the Pretty Boy Floyd album the last few years, you've also been working on new solo material. Now, is that something you continue to work on, or is that kind of been put on the side?
No, actually, I'm almost done with that as well. So, actually, all the songs are done, they're recorded, everything is actually done. I've just been listening to it at home and saying, I just want to fix up a couple of vocal things. Obviously, I'm not, a great singer or anything like that, so when I go in there and do my vocals, I really have to, focus in on them.
And I got to ask you, like your hero Ace, like you were talking earlier, I've heard in interviews where he didn't used to be comfortable in his ability to be a lead singer, and you've been doing this a while now. So, did it take you a while to get to that point where you felt comfortable in your ability to sing lead? The reason I ask is, I think you're a pretty decent singer, and I think it makes sense, being that you're the guy that wrote the songs, for you to sing them rather than to have another guy come in and kind of try to sing your tunes. I think it just you're able to sing it more from the heart, if you know what I mean.
You know what? Yeah, at first I didn't, I couldn't find my vocal range. And sometimes I write songs that might have been left over from some Pretty Boy Floyd ideas and stuff. And I would struggle to sing them. And some of my earlier stuff that I put out were just a literally just the 8-track. It was it was pretty horrible recording, you know. But I put them out there anyway. But it was just me singing it like into a microphone directly plugged into an 8-track, you know, not even going through a preamp or an equalizer or anything like that, you know, or a compressor or anything. So, but now that I have like a full-fledged studio and actually, real microphones, and basically I have the same exact setup that I think like James Michael uses with his microphones and his vocal chain that he uses for
6 a.m.
That he used to record like the Saints of Los Angeles and
wow.
records and all of those stuff that he's done recently. It's amazing what when you get professional gear and you're listening to it and you go, oh my God, wow, what was I doing before?
Yeah, it's amazing.
How much easier it actually is to sing when you when you're listening back and you're hearing something come through your headphones that sounds pleasant to your ears.
Well, look what you can do with this equipment. Yeah, that's got to be a great feeling now. So I imagine you produce all your music. Is that correct?
Yeah, I do it in combination with Kerry Kelly. You know.
Okay.
I go down to his studio and we do drums and like some basic tracks down there, and then I take stuff to my studio and then I do guitar solos and vocals and everything, and then I hand everything over after I'm all done. I hand it back over to Kerry and have Kerry mix it, and then so. Yeah.
Now, obviously, part of the reason for doing that is to save a little bit of money, as opposed to having to bring in a lot of outside musicians. But you're primarily a guitar player, so I got to ask you, Kristy, how much do you enjoy getting the opportunity? Like when you record a solo album, you get to go in and play the bass, you get to go in and play the drums and the keyboards and kind of do everything.
Well, the funny thing is like even back in when we go back to, and I mean not that many people know this, I think I said it one time, but I played the bass on every single Pretty Boy Floyd record and the guitars on every single Pretty Boy Floyd record. I mean even the Leather Boys Floyd record, I remember even when Vinny when he did his bass tracks, I remember when we worked with Howard. I remember Howard telling me, he's like, hey man, we can't pull this off. He's like, he goes, how can we get you in here to do it without him knowing about it? And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, well, yeah. He's like, let's do this. He goes, like at 3 o'clock in the morning, he goes, we'll send a car for you and to just come down to the studio, So I remember going down there and we were soloing out his bass tracks, and basically all I did was, so I didn't want to go too crazy on it. So me and Howard both agreed that what we would do is just, I would play his bass tracks identically and the same things that he was playing, but just in time and just make sure that it sounded a little better.
So did he ever find out about that, or you guys were able to keep it under wraps?
Yeah, he did find out about it. Eventually, we were recording a soundtrack song for the movie Switch.
Okay.
That Kevin DuBrow actually wrote.
Oh, okay, yeah. Is that Slam Dunk?
Slam Dunk, yeah.
Yeah, I always loved that. I always loved that version. I eventually heard Quiet Riot did a version too a couple of years later.
Yeah, we had basically MCA gave us a little demo of it, and they said, hey, we want you to record this song for the soundtrack, and we had picked out Max Norman to produce it, and God, I wish Max would have did the Pretty Boy Floyd record, Boy Floyd record, now that I listen to it. But yeah, no, and so basically I was in the studio, and I finished my guitar parts, and it was kind of funny when I did my guitar parts with Max, we didn't use any amplifiers. We were just using, we were using like, I don't know what they were like these ADA guitar preamps. I think it was the same thing that like Skid Row used on their first album.
Okay.
It was crazy, I don't know. But anyway, it sounded great. And then I was doing the bass parts, and actually when I was doing the bass parts, Vinny actually showed up at the studio, and he saw me playing a bass, and he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And he got all pissed off, and anyway, it was a big fight. And yeah, I think that was pretty much, and then I think we went to Japan, and that was pretty much Floyd.
Oh, wow.
Right after that, there was a lot of tension, and Bret Hartman, our A&R guy, had just gotten fired. So that was my departure.
That's kind of, being the Kiss fan, obviously you are, it's kind of interesting to have a story like that. I mean, I guess you can understand then, like, also talking about Destroy, the fact that, they had Alice Cooper's guitar player, Dick Wagner, come in and do a solo, like, on Sweet Pain, and nobody knew about that, a little secret for years, but I guess, you could kind of, being a musician yourself.
I didn't even know about that.
That's kind of become a little secret among Kiss fans. And recently they put out, like, about 5 years ago, of the 30th anniversary, Bob Ezrin put out, like, a remastered version of Destroyer with the original artwork. I don't know if you ever got a chance to see that, but they have both versions of Sweet Pain, like the original demo with the Ace cut, and then they had this guy Dick Wagner, like I said, he played on the album track.
Wow.
Yeah, and
That's
another.
crazy. Yeah, no, I mean, obviously that goes on a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, especially back then, when you were like limited on budget.
Yeah.
Especially when it used to cost so much money.
Yeah.
And to produce a record, it was so much money. I mean, obviously you want to get in and out there with the best takes that you possibly can get. And obviously Bob Ezrin, with his relationship with Alice Cooper,
could do that.
Yeah.
I mean,
everybody likes to bring in their favorite players or favorite background vocalists that they're used to working with, or favorite drummers that they're used to working with, to produce a record, because they know what they're going to get.
I mean, it's kind of interesting knowing all these years later too, like the fact that on Alive too, on those studio tracks, except for Rocket Ride, all those guitar parts were done by Bob Kulick, not Ace.
Yeah, that is just blown away, because I mean it sounds so much like Ace.
And I guess he's the type of player. That's why they brought in Bob Kulick, because they told Bob, we don't want anybody knowing what's going on. We want you to play these songs the way Ace would play them. And I guess he's that talented of a guitar player, but he was able to fool people for years. And he said, he goes, it wasn't important for me to let people know that I played on those tracks. I'm glad I'm able to let people know now, but it was the type of thing where I was helping out my friends. And you got to respect the guys in Kiss for back in the day, not wanting the fans to know what was going on with Ace, with the fact that he was hooked on dope and alcohol, and they're trying to really put that image out there that that they were all the best of friends, and everybody was on the album. They were trying to really keep that image tight.
Yeah, I think there's I think many years later, we find out later that a lot of band members just didn't play on
albums.
Albums.
Yeah, and a little bit. The last.
But they just didn't. They couldn't cut it in the studio for whatever it is. Especially drummers. There's been a lot of drummers that I found out lately.
Yeah.
Over the years that have not played on records, only because they just couldn't play to a click track.
Yeah. And the last little bit of Kiss trivia here, talking about Destroyer. I don't know if you know, Kristy, but God of Thunder, which is often thought of as a Gene Simmons song, because of that's typically the song where he breathes fire and everything during the show and does his bass solo. But that's actually a song that was written originally by Paul Stanley. And he's originally going to cut the lead vocal. And there's actually, if you got the Kiss box set, there's a demo version of Paul singing the lead. And it was actually Bob Ezrin that said, you know what, Paul, I think this song is more suited for Gene. And it's kind of interesting that that's a Paul Stanley tune when that's Gene Simmons' persona. That's who he became known as, the God of Thunder.
Exactly.
I mean, how amazing is that? And
crazy.
Yeah.
Gene, obviously Gene and Paul were just great songwriters. I mean, obviously I thought Paul was actually obviously I gravitated more towards Paul's songwriting, especially when you listen to the solo record.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what Gene was thinking on his solo record, but Paul Stanley and Ace Frehley's solo records are incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I guess with Gene's, I mean, I like some of the stuff on there. I guess if you put that album out, on I guess his love for the Beatles was kind of coming out, and Paul's that's kind of the one that everybody kind of points to, and I think Ace, for the simple fact, like we were talking earlier, he kind of before Shock Me, he really was afraid to sing or be front of a stage or anything, and I think that's why with his album, it really shocked people because they're like, wow, look at what this guy can do.
Yeah, great. I mean, great songwriting, great songs,
Yeah.
killer vocals. I mean, it was just very simplistic with his delivery. That's the interesting part about some people's vocals is just the way they deliver, or just I don't know that just.
Yeah, you take that Ace Frehley album from 1978. I'll tell you what. Okay, people will tell you maybe Ace Frehley's not the greatest lead singer in the world, but like you put that album on, those songs fit his voice. Those songs fit his personality, and that's why it works.
Exactly. That's exactly right. There's a magic sometimes that you capture down at the studio, and when you do something, when you're doing something,
Yeah.
And it just comes out great. It doesn't happen all the time, but when
Yeah.
it does happen, make one of those iconic records that.
Yeah, and that's why. Yeah, that's the last thing I'll say on Destroyer. And this being 40 years celebrating the release of Destroyer is two things about that album. Like I said earlier, Bob Ezrin, he's like the fifth member of a key ingredient there. He really made the band step up things when it came to his songwriting. I mean, that's why I think they really developed as songwriters on that album.
Yes, obviously, because after that album, the songs after that album were just, they were all impeccable songwriting, from Rock and Roll Over to Love Gun to everything else after that.
And to me, the shame is, okay, you have an album like Destroy, but those songs are still a huge part of the Kiss set list today, and it's kind of interesting. You would think after the success they had with Destroy, they would have kind of repeated that, but after that album, the guys started, as great as the songs were, they kind of started writing songs on their own. Whereas that's why when they did Destroyer with Ezra, and that's another thing I loved about that album. Revenge, in '92. I love the fact that they went back to singing songs together. They went back to writing together. That's when Kiss is really at its best. When Gene and Paul are writing and singing together.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, we all know what's happened with Kiss now.
Yeah.
And many people have been vocal about it. And I feel the same way. I won't go see a Kiss show. Because it's just not Kiss. I think Eddie Trunk has said it many times. I don't even know. I think maybe Dee Snider. A few people have radio shows. There's no reason why Tommy Thayer and Eric Singer could not put on, make their own makeup up like Vinnie Vincent did, or Eric Carr, or anybody else. Make their own makeup.
Yeah, I agree to a certain extent. But the only thing I will say on that matter is this: that the funny thing about all that is, I do believe that the characters, if you will, they have even become more iconic than the musicians that play them, if you know what I mean. When you think of Kiss, you think of kind of like what you're saying, Chris. You think of the Demon, the Star Child, the Spaceman, the Cat, I almost, what's laughable to me is more so when you hear Gene and Paul talking about Kiss is going to go on forever. Even we're going to find our own replacements. We're going to retire, and Kiss is going to go on. They were talking a couple years ago about having a reality show to find their own replacements. And I thought, okay, at that point, maybe it is a little ridiculous, because being the Kiss fan I am, I could kind of see Kiss going on with Gene and Paul and some new guys, but because they're the guys that wrote most of the stuff. But take Gene and Paul, I don't know that Kiss would even be the same. Yeah.
Look, I've had two run-ins with Gene. Look, and these are people that I grew up with.
Yeah.
And I've had two run-ins with Gene, and my two run-ins with Gene made me hate the man.
Wow.
I gotta tell you, Paul Stanley's nicest guy in the world, super cool. Gene, complete ass.
Wow.
And he's a complete ass. I kicked him out of my dressing room. I think in 1989, we were opening up for Warren at Universal Studios, and Gene and Paul were back there. And I took pictures with Paul. I went over to go try and take pictures with Gene. He's just like, no pictures. And I'm like, come on, man. Paul took some, man. Come on, man. hit on every single girl that was in our dressing room.
Wow.
I just was like, security, can you please escort Mr. Simmons out of our fucking dressing room?
Wow.
And, yeah, so we had him out of our dressing room, and it was just so funny because I looked over at Paul, and Paul was just laughing, actually.
We know the great thing about hearing a story like that to me, Kristy, the fact that you can still, well, maybe not necessarily love a man, that doesn't take away from you loving his music.
Music is music, and I can love music no matter what. And obviously, what people have created in the past, obviously, it doesn't affect,
Yeah.
whether I'm going to listen to someone's music or not. Obviously, I think Gene is just a tool. He's an idiot. That stupid reality show he had, which just showed more of what a joke he actually fucking is. His ridiculous fucking sex tape or whatever. It's just a joke.
Yeah.
Gene has just become a joke, and the things he says on Twitter and some of the things, whatever. He's intelligent, but he's an idiot.
Yeah. Many sides to everybody, I guess. But now,
But I love Kiss. I love Kiss's music. God, what, like 20 albums worth of music?
Oh, at least. Yeah, and again, to me, that just shows the talent as songwriters. The fact that, again, you buy the latest Kiss album, Monster, it might not be anything like Destroyer or Love Gun, but the fact that these guys are still able, all these 40 years later, to still kind of write new music, I'm like, okay, there's something there as far as their talent as songwriters, and I think that's why Kiss is one of a few bands that's been able to last, for over 40 years.
Yeah, I gotta tell you, it's really hard when you start getting older to try and throw yourself in a mindset of when you were younger and trying to write songs that you think your fans would like and putting your headspace in, because it's when you lock yourself into a certain style, and you get older, maybe you might want to write some more stuff that personally relates to you, and maybe personal experiences and stuff, and then, but it's I feel like with Pretty Boy Floyd, it's like the same thing. It's like, fans want a certain type of music, and there's really no musical, there's no lyric content in a Pretty Boy Floyd song that's going to change the world, or that's anything that's super dramatic or something to say, So it's kind of hard to lock yourself in there and lock yourself in a room and just sit there and go, okay, I got to write lyrics here now that are not me now. I got to think of myself of when I was 20 years old, and
wow.
What was I thinking? It's kind of hard,
Because I've been reading things online where I guess with this new album you guys are going to be putting out on Frontiers, kind of the goal you had in mind is, okay, we're going to go in there and create an album, which is in our mind what the true follow-up to Electric Boys would have been.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we try to do. It's like, okay, hey, let's make a song that's kind of like Leather Boys with Electric Toy song. Let's make a song that's kind of like similar to a Rock and Roll Outlaw. Let's make a song that's similar to this, and similar to that song. And obviously, we don't want to let the fans down, because I think a lot of people get turned off by bands when they put out records 20 years later or 25 years later, and it sounds nothing like the music that made them fans to begin with.
Hopefully, like I said, it seems like over the course of the last couple of years, there's a little more love for you guys than there once was. So maybe this album will be coming out at the perfect time. We hope for that, and it's Pretty Boy Floyd fans, but I gotta ask you, Kristy, because it's kind of interesting. All these years later, when people think of Pretty Boy Floyd, you're right. That's the album they go to, Electric Boys with Electric Toys. Now, obviously, when you're making the album at the time, you had no idea of a kind of response you were going to get to that album. Are you surprised at the reaction that album continues to get all these years later?
You know what? It's freaking amazing, because there's a lot of bands that put out one or two records and stuff, and they they, nobody remembers them at all.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was about that record. All I could think, I always compared it as kind of like a cult B movie or something.
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah.
A cult horror flick or something. Or I compare it sometimes to like, hey, if Motley Crue just put out Too Fast for Love and they just kind of like disappeared.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. I can't explain it. The recording of it is so terrible.
Uh-huh.
When I listen to it now compared to what I've been doing, like the guitars sound like chainsaws. And at the time, I was thinking like, okay, hey, you know what? This is cool. I'm like, I want to make the most, annoying guitar tone that I could possibly make, But but I don't know, when I go back and listen to it, the recording as far as the mix goes.
Well, yeah. Now, with that being said, would you ever have any interest in going in and maybe remastering or retweaking whatever you possibly could, or is it one of those things where you think, okay, I'm not crazy about the sound, but it's a classic album, I don't really want to mess with it?
You know what? You can't touch it. You gotta leave it alone.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just something that like we recorded and it came out. We were only a band for a short amount of time when we went in to make that record. We were only around for 10 months.
Wow.
And we had only played like 10 shows, and we got our record deal, and then boom, we're flying to Philadelphia to record a record with Howard Benson, who at that time had only produced, I think, Jack Mack and the Heart Attack, and Bang Tango.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we didn't know what we were doing, that whole thing about, producers saying like, oh yeah, fix it in the mix, oh yeah, fix it in the mix, oh yeah, oh don't worry, we'll get it in the mix, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's not a lot, and there is no fixing it in the mix.
Well, there you go. And I could talk to you all night, Kristy, but I know you're busy, so I'm going to get ready to let you go and wrap this up. This interview be probably going up sometime in August. What we're doing is we've been conducting these Destroyer 40 interviews, and you're probably about interview number, I believe, 19 at this point, and we're going to roll them out in the order that they were done in, which I think is kind of a cool idea. And obviously, I'm glad I got a chance to talk to you. You're a huge Kiss fan that you are, and like I said, if you get a chance to check out that Ace Frehley cover CD, you could even probably check the songs out online. I think somebody's posted them all up online, but just great stuff.
Really? You can get songs online for free? Wow.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's so much to the point that I'm a diehard fan myself that I was kind of amazed. The night before Ace released this latest CD he put out, the cover CD, every single track was posted online the night before it came out. But being the fan I am, like I said, I want to have this in my hand. I want to be able to play it in the car. I went out and actually bought a copy. Imagine that.
Good for you, man. Because it's so hard for musicians to make money nowadays through making records, and I think that's why a lot of bands still, they don't put out new CDs because they make no money off of it. There's no money in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's on our website, or it's on YouTube Downloader or something like that. It's all stuff. But I'm old school like you, man. If I like a band and they put out new music and I like it, I buy the physical copy of it.
I like to have it in my hand. That's what I always urge people to do. And the last thing I want to touch on.
And truly, you know what? There's people out there. If you're listening and you do really like a band and you do want to support them, I understand that the money's tough and the economy's hard. But if you want, people to keep on making music and putting out music and come and tour in your area and play shows, you know what? Freaking spend $10 on a fucking CD, Jesus Christ. Yeah,
at least go to the band, catch the band live, and then go buy their CD when you go to the show. That's a true way to be a rock fan and support your rock bands. But very last thing, Kristy, is you're talking a little bit about your new solo CD coming out. Any chance that'll be out before a Pretty Boy Floyd CD?
Probably.
Oh, that's great. Well, do me a favor, my friend, and keep me up to date, or I'll follow you on Facebook, anyways. But when you're ready to release that, let's have a talk about that, because I always love to promote what you're doing, because I've always been a big fan.
Right on. Thank you so much, Jason. I really appreciate it, man.
Okay, take care, my friend. Bye-bye.